Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Please shed light on Mano Nigraha and its relevance to Mano Nasha also. Is it similar to the Zen Buddhist practice of mindfulness, empty mind? Mano Nigraha means the control of the mind. In this case, the stoppage of the mind. Nigraha means control. Mano Nigraha. Controlling the mind. For that, Bhagavad Gita recommends or Yoga Shastra Abhyasa and Vairagya. If my mind gets distracted, Vairagya towards the object of distraction, and Abhyasa, bringing the mind back to the object of meditation. That's the method of Mano Nigraha, controlling the mind. Mano Nasha, as we explained, is a distraction of the ignorant mind. Ignorance is dispelled, that Vedanta would call Mano Nasha. Otherwise, in Yoga Vasishtha, etc., Mano Nasha means the tendency of the mind to get distracted. A cessation of the tendency of the mind to get distracted, to run away to objects of pleasure. That mind does not run away, it just remains steady in its own locus. Mano Nasha. Because mind has a tendency to get attracted towards what it considers the object of happiness. When it becomes free from all that, then it settles down in its own locus. So there also Mano Nasha is not the distraction of mind, but the distraction of the binding element of the mind, the extrovertedness of the mind. Mind running away from its object of meditation. Zen Buddhist practice of mindfulness is alertness, being in the present, being alert to what I am doing, meaning the mind, the body, the manaha mind, the speech and the body, or the karma. All of them are in one location. Where the action is, there the speech is, there the mind is. Then whole of my being is, there is an integration or alignment, what we call mindfulness. That my whole mind is applied to the present moment. And that mindfulness can lead ultimately to empty mind, well, empty of ragadvesha, as you can say, empty of the binding elements, that you can call empty mind. If I do not associate happiness with desires, will not my efforts to do action go down? If my action does not produce happiness, where is the incentive to do anything? Happiness is not in desire, happiness is in fulfilling the desire, understand? Desire is in my mind. When I get the desired object, that is when I feel happy. Now you say that there is no happiness in objects, which means that even after making an effort, what I get will not make me happy, then where is the incentive to do anything? If action does not produce happiness, because there is no happiness anywhere else, what is the incentive to perform the action? But action can be performed not necessarily to acquire the object of pleasure. Action can be performed to remove the obstacle to happiness. Happiness is my own nature, and I do not seem to experience that happiness because of the raga-dveshas. The attachment, aversion, which is what we call the extrovertness of the mind, and manonasa means elimination of raga-dveshas. So even though there is no happiness out in the objects, happiness is only the nature of the self, and still I do not seem to experience happiness with my own self because of the obstruction of raga and dvesha. Therefore, either an action can be performed to fulfill a desire, or an action can be performed to remove raga dveshas. You follow the difference? I have a desire, I want something, I perform an action to fulfill that desire, that's one way. Or I perform an action recognizing that there are attachments and aversions in me, and they are denying me the experience of happiness. Therefore, I perform action to clean my mind, scrape the impurities away, so that happiness which is in myself becomes evident. So action can bring about happiness, not by producing object of happiness, but by removing obstacle to happiness, which is raga dvesha. So nishkama karma is a karma which is not prompted by kama or raga dvesha. So that karma will be able to remove raga dveshas. It's karma yoga. Why will I make any effort if happiness is not associated with it? Happiness is associated with action if action is performed with the right attitude. Same action performed with the wrong attitude creates unhappiness. Performing the right attitude creates happiness. Action performed with the attitude of consuming creates unhappiness. Contribution creates happiness. Action does not produce happiness or unhappiness. It is the attitude behind the action. Right attitude creates happiness as a result of action. Wrong attitude creates unhappiness. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita teaches right attitudes. So, nishkama, selflessness is one attitude. Being a giver, contributor. Values, amanitvam, adambhitvam. All of these are conducive to manifestation of happiness which is in my own self. That means there is all the reason to do things properly, intelligently. If I am asked to consider myself a jnani, if I am asked to consider myself a jnani, who will ask you to do that? Why should I ask somebody else to act as a jnani? What's the point? If you decide to act as a jnani, it's a different thing. If I'm asked to consider myself a jnani, no. You are not asked to consider yourself as a jnani, you are asked to consider yourself as accomplished, as a complete being, as one who does not need anything. Look at that. Therefore, perform action not to fulfill needs, perform action to fulfill the needs of others. So nobody says I should look upon myself as a jnani, no. I want to be a jnani. For that I do what is required to facilitate the knowledge to take place. So yes, if you act as a jnani, people will they not respond to me as a fake person or ridicule me? They will. If you are a fake person, they will think it is you are fake. We are not saying you fake that you are a jnani. You fake that you are a wealthy person. You are a large-hearted person. And act accordingly. That's called fake it till you make it. Not fake as a jnani. Fake as someone who doesn't need anything. And so, then, if I don't need anything, my action is to give something. The self makes Jagat known. Consciousness makes everything known. So understand the bhati part of the asti bhati, priyam of the self. How is the isness of the Jagat also because of me? How is asti of Jagat because of me? First of all, tell me who you are. You are asti bhati priyam, that's your nature. And therefore you are the one who imparts existence to everything. This, in the evening class we say, if I hold a flower in my hand, you say, yes, there is flower. Why do you say? Because there is awareness of flower. So existence is established by awareness, isn't it? And when can you be aware of the flower? If it exists. So existence and awareness always go together. What is existence? Is awareness, because they always take place simultaneously. And awareness or existence by itself is also dear. Because what is boundless, limitless is what I love. The existence doesn't have any boundary, doesn't have any form, doesn't have any attribute. Asti bhati. I am also asti, you are also asti, everybody is asti. Sense and insense, asti has no boundaries at all, isn't it? Everything shines in my awareness without exception. Asti and bhati are all pervasive, without boundary, boundless. And what is boundless is dear to me. That is how asti bhati also is priyam. Therefore, what is because of me, what shines is because of me, what is dear is because of me. I am the source, asti bhati priyam. I impart existence, intelligence, happiness to everything. Can you please elaborate between saguna nature and nirguna nature of Brahman? Is the duality and the processes of prescribed like karma yoga, bhakti yoga are meant for saguna aspects? Saguna and nirguna, as though they are two different things. There is only one thing. Brahman is boundless, is limitless, is not so? The word Brahman means limitless. From the root bruh, bruhi vruddhau, something that is large, vast, boundless. So Brahman means boundless, limitless. And therefore limitless is no limit. So it is no attributes, it is nirguna. So fundamental truth is Brahman, which is without limitation, therefore without attributes. Same nirguna Brahma appears as Saguna. When it wears a costume of name and form, Seven appears as possessed of. So gunas are all in costume. Nirgunam Brahma as though puts on the costume of guna, nama, rupa. We call it Saguna Brahma. Don't think there are two Brahman. Nirguna alone is called Saguna with reference to the attributes. So yes, we can always relate because we are Saguna, as I see myself. Therefore I can relate to Brahman with Guna. So all Karma Yoga, worship, all of this is towards Saguna Brahma. For ultimately to grow out of this Guna. But all Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga involves duality. Karma Yoga involves a person who performs karma and one to whom it is offered. Bhakti Yoga involves a Bhakta and Bhagavan. So yes, all this sadhana involves duality. With one possessing one gunas and Ishvara possessing, I am small, he is vast, I am limited, he is boundless. So yes, all Karma Yoga, Bhakti, all of these which involve duality is directed to Saguna Brahma. Nirguna Brahma doesn't do anything. It's useless. It doesn't hear. It doesn't walk, doesn't talk, doesn't hear. Therefore we want Brahman to hear. You perform prayer. Nirguna doesn't even know, doesn't hear. What's the use of that? But Saguna Brahma hears everything. So we can relate as devotees. Ultimately, to drop off that costume. Significance of Shatabhishekam, the purpose of Homa, how did that come up? Shata means 100. Shatabhishekam, Abhisheka you do. The ritual bath that you give, pour water, when a person completes 100 years, which nobody does, very few. So when you actually become 80 years, they say you are 100, celebrate 100 years, They call it Shatabhishekam, it is not Shatabhishekam. It is Sahasra Chandra Darshanam. When you are 80 years and 8 months and 8 days, then you have passed through 1,000 full moon, or 80 years that add up to that. So Sahasra Chandra Darshanam also is generally called Shatabhishekam. I said, why do you call it Swami? He says, Swami, because nobody actually goes to. So we say, you are 100. Be happy. Worship Bhagavan not for a reason but to draw his attention. Duality, when we seek worship, non-dualism is worshipping for Atma Samarpanam. So are these statements or these questions? So worship Bhagavan not for a reason but to draw his attention. Is it true or false? What is the question here? Is the statement true or false? Is that the question? Duality when we seek, non-duality is worshipping for Atma Samarpanam. What is it?
Because we say God is in us. Because we say God is within us. So when you do the Atma Samarpana, then you are worshipping the Brahman within you. I was just trying to clarify for myself.
Right. There Atma Samarpana means Samarpana of ego. So until then there is duality of the one who offers and the one to whom the offering is done. As long as ego is there, when recognized that ego becomes very subtle, no more assertive, then there is no more duality.
I also asked why is it perform
Homa is an act of worship. These days you perform pujanam to devatas. In the Vedic times, the homa was a means of worshipping devatas. Here we invoke devata in a murti, or a form, or a symbol. Those days devatas were invoked in fire. So here you offer naivedya to the deity, then you offer naivedya to fire where devata is invoked. You offer the naivedya that the deity likes. To Lord Krishna you offer butter. To Lord Shiva you offer, I don't know what he eats, but the laddu. Ganesha, the manvodakam, Devi payasam. Because every devata has their own, likes. Similarly, different devatas, different oblations, or different materials are offered. That is the way to offer to devatas, those days. Is it fair or correct to say that when I am constantly seeking and searching for particular things and outcomes, I am really seeking a particular set of feelings? The feelings that become apparent when I realize I am Ishvara. This question is not clear to me. Can you clarify?
I think it's fine. I have to read it again.
All right, please.
I understand. I don't remember what. Yeah, I was asking from the framework of being, I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a therapist, so I try to merge what I'm learning here with the language that we use in our field. So I was just curious if I was curious if the word, when we are seeking, whether it's an object or really the true self, is is it similar to saying that we are seeking a state of feelings? You know, like when we do identify with the real self, it feels different than when we deal with something that is not the real self. And is it okay to think of, to use the word feelings in that way?
What you're seeking is experience. What you're seeking is experience which you presume will generate happiness. An experience can give us pleasure, pain, happiness, unhappiness. When we perform an action, we are seeking an experience. We hope that a given object will provide that experience, so we want that object. But through the object, what we are seeking is experience of happiness. And so what we are seeking is happiness. If you seek at feeling of happiness. Happiness being a state of mind, you are seeking a state of mind, which is what we call happiness. Hope that that object, when I experience that object, will create that state of mind, or feeling if you want to call it, which is what we call happiness.
Of course, that state of mind, what we learn through this is that state of mind is really the only reality that exists. We have to just...
Not the state of mind is not the reality. Reality is something that does not change. A state of mind comes and goes. What comes and goes is not reality. Then we are always uncertain whether that will come back or not. Reality is something that is certain, dependable, infallible. In Puja Swamiji's words, we are seeking the infallible, something that will not disappoint me, that is reliable, trustworthy. So only trustworthy thing can be called truth. State of mind is not trustworthy, it comes and goes. A changing thing cannot be trustworthy because it changes. Now it's with me, it's going to leave me. So one who experiences that self is ultimately the truth, not the feeling or state of mind. Although a happy state of mind is a desirable state of mind as compared to others. So first attempt is to have a happy mind, which is what everybody wants. We just discussed that as long as we are attempting to derive happiness from something, it is only an illusion, not a reality, because that something doesn't possess happiness. So a thing can only create an appearance of happiness. Only source of happiness is you. So what a thing can do is to facilitate the manifestation of happiness that is you, and so you experience it, and you feel that it came from there. What we call object of happiness facilitates the manifestation of happiness, which is my own self, and not understanding that, we conclude that the happiness came from that object. So I want it again. No guarantee that next time it will be able to do the same thing. So very often we are disappointed because our conclusion was wrong. It's not that object has disappointed me. It is that my expectation was unreasonable. I expected from the object what it doesn't have. Then I can't blame it. They blame all family, parents, these, that, all those fellows are all there, related, selfish. That's all unfair to brand other things as this. I must understand my own self, recognize things as they are, not make unreasonable demands upon them, and then say that, they don't fulfill my demand, they are all self-centered. They relate to me because they are seeking benefit of me. So these are all conclusions that people arrive at. Not recognizing that in first place my demand was unreasonable. Okay. Can you explain the concept of Pratipaksha Bhavana? Steps towards that. You're all, I'm sure, familiar with it, but I'll still repeat. Bhavana means attitude. Paksha means a position. Pratipaksha, contrary position or contrary viewpoint. Deliberately adopting a contrary viewpoint to neutralize a given viewpoint. For example, I get angry at somebody. That is because I have a viewpoint of that person. That makes me angry. I cannot tolerate that person. That's my viewpoint. I have the freedom to take the contrary viewpoint and say, well, this person did this and did harm to me. I can also recognize that maybe in that process he has helped me in some way. Suppose I find that. But everything is like two sides of a coin. So where I see harm from one standpoint, it is possible to see help also from another standpoint. That a sculptor is harming the rock with his chisel and hammer, or he's shaping the rock. It's a matter of interpretation. One standpoint creates in me an anger. Look at this fellow, what is he doing? How he is so cruel to the rock. But the same thing can be looked upon in a different way. It is shaping the rock. Therefore, everything has, if we search for it, we'll find that where we see a fault, there itself there is also some advantage from another standpoint. Where I see a person's limitations, there also there are benefits. So Pratipaksha Bhavana. To make it simpler, I get angry at a person. I may have reason to get angry. Because the person did something to make me unhappy. So anger comes because of intolerance. Then I can deliberately adopt the attitude of tolerance. It's all right. There also can be. Let us give the person the freedom to be what the person is. Why do I demand that that person should only act in a certain way to help, to make me happy? Give the person the freedom. One way. Or anger can be neutralized by deliberately being kind to the person. There is some problem there. Why does the person behave like this? There is some problem. When you see that, then your kindness or compassion is invoked. So that neutralizes anger. So this is called Pratipaksha Bhavana, where we deliberately choose a standpoint, which is a real standpoint, not a fake standpoint. Because as I said, these two sides always exist everywhere. That's how the world is. It's called Dvandva. So we deliberately look for the contrary side, which is also there. The rose also is there and thorns are also there. So thorn pierced me, then I focus attention on the rose. So thus Pratipaksha Bhavana means deliberately adopting the attitude, the contrary attitude, an attitude that creates a reaction. I deliberately adopt the contrary attitude to neutralize that reaction. That is the Pratipaksha Bhavana. So for anger, Pratipaksha Bhavana is compassion. For greed, Pratipaksha Bhavana is contentment. For kama or desire, Pratipaksha Bhavana is viveka or discrimination. So, thus we have to understand the source of where this reaction comes, then we'll be able to see what Pratipaksha Bhavana is. As we grow, we start to become aware of the fact that so many things that remain highly valued by the society do not help us to be successful. What society calls means of success, we discover that they don't make me create a feeling of success. Can you comment on ways for us to maintain distance from society's reinforcement or lack of reinforcement so that we can have less distractions on our road to success? Well, if you have discovered that what the society calls success is not really success, then you should also have understood what true success is. The society may call the wealth and power and fame to be success. You know that your inner contentment is success, suppose. Then you pursue. The success that society defines can be attained by being a consumer. The success that you desire and understand now requires you to be a contributor. Now, reinforcement by society. What we also need is validation. Acceptance by others. I guess that's what is meant here, reinforcement. We need approval by others. Is that what is meant by reinforcement?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is our problem. Everybody has that problem in one measure or the other. That we are seeking validation or approval from others. Because I am not sure if what I am doing is right or not. And therefore, if some significant person says you are right, I am not seeking approval from any Tom, Dick and Harry. I am seeking approval from what Puji Swami says, significant few. My uncle may be a significant person, my father may be, my teacher may be, somebody else. A few people who are important in our life, whose approval is important to us. But that is because we do not quite approve of ourselves, therefore we need reinforcement or approval from others. Therefore, dwell upon your understanding of what you understand as success. And when a conviction develops that, yes, what I understand is right, and what I do is right, then the need for approval will be less. When I am convinced about what I am doing, when I am convinced about the validity or righteousness of what I am doing, then I will need less approval from others. So ask, why do I need reinforcement? If I am not sure as to what my understanding is right or not, whether what I am doing is right or not. So dwell upon that and see that what you understand is correct, what you are doing is right. If thus we have that conviction of ourselves, our need for approval will be less. And we will approve ourselves. So, a lack of self-confidence, more lack of self-esteem or self-confidence, more need for approval from others. So let us pay attention to our understanding, our decisions, our convictions, and more convinced we are of the rightfulness of what I am doing, more confident I will be. More confident I am, less is the need of approval from others. That fellow is really free. He can come and go, It seems that ego identification is intertwined with samsara. Ego identification is intertwined with samsara. You need some identity basically in order for you to function in the world. Our society used to give identity. Brahmacharya, you are given upanayana. Now you are brahmachari. Until then he was running around, he has no identity. Identity, with that comes responsibility. Now you must do this, your Gayatri mantra, this, that. Then another identity, you are a gruhastha, now you are a householder. One set of responsibilities. Vanaprastha, another set of responsibilities. Sannyasa, freedom from identity. So first you give identity, because identity creates a self-respect. A self-respect, and requires me to conduct myself in keeping with my dignity. That I am a brahmachari, no, I can't do that, and I must do this. Now I'm a household, I cannot do that, and I must do this. So identity helps us gain a sense of self-dignity, gives us responsibility, and gives us a platform from which to interact with the world. So it is required. Therefore we glorify the child's ego. Sometimes when we visit homes, there is a 5-year-old fellow, in his bedroom. Great speller, so there is a certificate. He spells C-A-T cat and B-A-T bat, He has a certificate. So he feels something, So we are, in a way, giving them the identity, giving them sort of a sense of pride. Should not go overboard with it. But it is necessary for a person to feel a sense of self-worth to function in the society. You can call it ego, whatever you want, but that is required. Then a time will come when we will want to grow out of self-worth and become self. But first we require self-respect, self-worth, self-dignity that enables me to conduct myself in a dignified way. I can't do this. It's not right for me. I should do this. It creates a sense of responsibility. Then I live a responsible life. So first step is to live a responsible life based on dharma, based on doing what is right. That also requires an identity because what is right for me may not be right for you. What is your identity that determines what is right for you? What is my identity determines what is right for me. So we have to provide identity, self-esteem, self-worth, a little bit of self-pride. Healthy self-pride is all required for a child to grow and interact with the world. As best as possible, should interact from a platform of self-dignity, self-confidence, self-worth. And identity gives you that. So, in the child, what we should try to do is instill basic values of dharma. You study our Purna Vidya, etc. for child education. When you teach values, then we should also give them boundaries. Speak truth is a value, but you can't be Harishchandra. If you are ready for to be, everybody knows Harishchandra's story. You can sell your child and sell your wife. I don't expect to speak truth to that extent because we are not Harishchandra. So we have our own limitation, therefore we follow the values within our capacity. Otherwise the value, instead of shaping you, will break you. Same thing that can shape you can also break you. The fire that can purify the gold can also burn the gold if it is too long in there. So when we communicate these values, etc. to children and tell them all ideal stories of Brahma, Parshurama, Nachiketa, it's all great. But also let us tell them the boundaries. That yet it is not easy to be Nachiketa. That's an ideal. But for Nachiketa to stick to truth, he had to give up his life. For Lord Rama to stick to dharma, he had to suffer for 14 years in forest. Now we are not there yet. How much really am I willing to suffer? To that extent I can. What I am saying is this education requires a maturity on our part for communication to children. So this business of self and non-self, don't worry about children. Don't teach them Vedanta. Don't teach them separation of self from non-self. Let them have we want ego first of all to become a sattvic ego. Ego first to be transformed from a tamasic ego to rajasic ego, from there to sattvic ego. So children have rajasic ego, then only they can do things. That when you do things, follow the basic values. Don't compromise means for the sake of end. This much we can tell them. Don't be controlled by your greed. Don't hurt others for achieving your ends. Some basic values you can give them, which can enable them to function in this existing world. And we must know that other people don't follow those values. So you should know how to protect yourself. We will not hurt others, But we should not allow others to hurt us also. That's also a value. So these kind of things we should slowly, child cannot understand everything, but as they grow. But has a parent minimized child's distance from Atma? Don't bother about Atma and Atma stuff for children. They don't understand. When we don't understand, how are they going to understand? Atma and Anatma and this. So, just simply teach them dharma. Be good people. Be good and do good. Within boundaries. And protect yourself. That's what we should teach the children. Don't teach them Vedanta. Don't teach them non-duality. Don't teach them selflessness. Don't teach them that.
The question wasn't around what to teach children, but it was the question wasn't around what to teach children, but it's sort of our own understanding of examining a child, and at some point they start to develop an ego, esteem. And I have a 3-year-old child, right? This is about him in particular. So he's developing an ego, he's developing esteem. We have to build that. We have to help him build it. But, they call this time, they call it a three-nager, like a teenager. A difficult period for this 3-year-old. Not for this one in particular, but most 3-year-olds. And the question was in regards to in understanding the development at that age. Is there some difficulty in this age because they are now coming into an ego, and coming into an ego means some separation from Atma? So for my own understanding, I was trying to understand why is this a difficult period?
We need not interpret that as separation from Atma. Ego means identification with the body, mind, sense complex. We are born with that. A child doesn't have that identification yet. He doesn't even know its individuality for first 6 months or something. Slowly then, when say that 2 years, that the terrible 2, that is when perhaps some identification and sense of individuality shows up. And then slowly that identification grows. And there is no particular pain as such in that identification. But certainly the identification creates separatedness from rest. The more identification is there in ego, more sense of separation is there. And sense of individuality is there. Its own insecurities will be there. Its own fears will be there. Yes, that way you can call it. Ego involves fears, insecurities, depending upon what samskara the child has. Sometimes child is aggressive, sometimes it is defensive, sometimes it is withdrawing, depends on nature from the past karma. So how a child will display the nature depends upon the samskara that it has inherited from the past, as we would understand. So I think every child is unique basically. But I do not know that there is a specific kind of a pain involved at a given age. There is pain involved with the sense of individuality, and as it grows stronger and stronger and stronger as you grow older in age, then there could be more need to protect yourself, assert yourself.
That's getting away from Atma, isn't it? I mean, there's a need for this, need for that, need for...
It is. Already gotten away, otherwise you won't be born. You will not be born if you were with Atma anyway. So it is, we are born with the habit of identifying with the body, mind. Except that identification becomes stronger as we grow. As the mind becomes mature, you become more and more aware of sense of individuality. When mind has not become mature, you have less sense of that. A child grows, then it recognizes people, then it doesn't go here, doesn't go there, then slowly choices come out, then raga dveshas may slowly come out. They're all there. We parents need not think that we have done this to the child. That's what people think. That parents are doing it. No, they don't do that. Even if they may do something, but that every child has brought all the samskaras with him or her. And we should facilitate by not creating further complexes and things like that. That's what we can do. As I say, even when we teach values, speak truth, we can create a complex because it is not easy to speak truth. It involves a lot of strength which you have not yet cultivated. And you are not able to speak truth. Then you have a sense of guilt. So these boundaries we can, in their own way, as they are growing up, we should teach them how to function in the family, when they go to school, out in the world. Basically, they will be the people, they will feed you what they are feeling, and accordingly you can communicate. Rather than presupposing what's going on there. I'm sure that the child psychology is all kinds of patterns there, but maybe child, when it expresses its feeling, then you can understand what's going on, and that way you can guide. Okay, I think we'll conclude here. We still could not finish all the questions, but basically, as you know very well, what children need is love. And love is something which needs to be interpreted. In any relationship, there is both anugraha and nigraha. Anugraha means giving freedom, nigraha means restraining. So where to give freedom and where to restrain? We think that love means giving them what they want. That's what some people think. Okay, beta. So you are spoiling them because they don't know the boundaries. So some people just keep on restraining, don't give anything. That also is wrong. A judicious application of where we should give them freedom and where we should restrain them. Where we feel that this will hurt them, restrain. Helps them, give them freedom. No judgment required on the part of the parents, mother in particular. So this is it. Every relationship requires anugraha and nigraha. Every relationship, and particularly parents and children. Because children depend upon parents, and parents are responsible for children, and children are not grown enough to take their own responsibility. So parents take the responsibility, and in that you have to decide what is right for the child. It wants candy. No. Okay, here. Second one, here. Third one. No, that is perhaps too much of anugraha, freedom. No candy, that may be too much of restriction. So sometimes it may be no candy, sometimes 3 candies. What it is, will the situation will decide. So every time we have to use our wisdom. You may be right or wrong, and learn. We also grow. As you know very well, children require that parents must grow. If parents remain where they are, then they are, So having child is a great privilege and a great challenge. Because it requires me to be sensitive, to also be mature, and to grow along with that. So it's a great opportunity and some challenge also. I know today somebody requested me to sing some bhajan, So, Shankara, Shankara, Parvati Manohara. Shankara, Shankara, Parvati Manohara. Chandramauli Shankara, Chandrasekhara. Chandramauli Shankara, Chandrasekhara. Shankara, Shankara, Parvati Manohara. Chandramauli Shankara, Chandrasekhara. Nandivahana, Nagabhushana. Nandivahana, Nagabhushana. Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara. Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara. Shankara, Shankara, Parvati Manohara. Chandramauli Shankara, Chandrasekhara. Nandivahana, Nagabhushana. Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara. Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara. Shankara, Shankara, Parvati Manohara. Shankara, Shankara, Parvati Manohara. Chandramauli Shankara Chandrasekhara Chandramauli Shankara Chandrasekhara Nandivahana Nagabhushana Nandivahana Nagabhushana Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara Shankara Shankara Parvati Manohara Chandramauli Shankara Chandrasekhara Nandivahana Nagabhushana Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara Neelakantha Shuladhari Chandrasekhara मनोबुद्ध्यहंकार चित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायुः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम् चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम् न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायुः न वा सप्तधातुर्न वा पञ्चकोशः न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्थपायु चिदानन्द चिदानन्दरूपः शिवो न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ मदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवो न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न mantro न तीर्थम न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम् न मे मृत्युशङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवो अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपः विभुर्व्याप्य सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां सदा मे समत्वं न मुक्तिर्न बन्धः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम् शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहम् ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ॐ